Brad, you want to pray for us?
Sure. Bow with me, guys. Dear Lord, we thank you for today, God. Thank you for just giving us air to breathe today. Thank you for the blessings of the people that we have surrounded around us, God. God, we pray during the season that we remember what you gave to us in your Son, Jesus, that he came to this earth to live it as an example to us so that we can learn from him, but then ultimately dying on the cross for our sins. God, help us remember that today and help us spread that as we encounter people. God, change our hearts. Be with us today as decisions are made and discussions are had, that you give us your perspective in all things that we do. We pray all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll go ahead and call Morris County Fiscal Court to order December 7th, 2021. Before we get started, I'm just going to read. I got some information offline. I just want to read about the significance of today. Obviously, we all know it's December 7th. We're aware of December 7th, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor. So I'm just going to read this for the court today. Attack on Pearl Harbor. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a surprise military strike by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service upon the United States against the naval base at Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Territory of Hawaii, just before 8 a.m. on December 7th, 1941. It was on a Sunday. The United States was a neutral country at the time. The attack led to its formal entry into World War II the next day. Japan intended the attack as a preventive action to prevent the United States Pacific Fleet from interfering with its planned military actions in Southeast Asia against overseas territories of the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and those of the United States. Over the course of 7 hours, there were coordinated Japanese attacks on the U.S.-held Philippines, Guam, and Wake Islands, and on the British Empire of Malaya, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The attack commenced at 7:48 a.m. Hawaiian time. The base was attacked by 353 Japanese aircraft, including fighters, level and dive bombers, and torpedo bombers, in 2 waves, launched from 6 aircraft carriers. Of the 8 U.S. Navy battleships present, all were damaged, with 4 sunk. All but USS Arizona were later raised, and 6 were returned to service and went on to fight in the war. The Japanese also sank or damaged 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, an anti-aircraft training ship, and 1 mine layer. A total of 188 U.S. aircraft were destroyed, 2,403 Americans were killed, and 1,178 others were wounded. December 7th, 1941, attack precipitated the entrance of the United States into World War II on the side of the Allies. Japan announced declarations of war on the United States and the British Empire later that day, December 8th, in Tokyo. But the declarations were not delivered until the following day. The British government declared war on Japan immediately after learning that their territory had also been attacked. While the following day, December 8th, the United States Congress declared war on Japan. On December 11th, though they had no formal obligation to do so under the tripartite pact with Japan, Germany, and Italy, each declared war on the U.S., which responded with a declaration of war against Germany and Italy. There were numerous historical precedents for the unannounced military action by Japan, but the lack of any formal warning, particularly while peace negotiations were still apparently ongoing, led President Franklin D. Roosevelt to proclaim December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, because the attack happened without a declaration of war and without explicit warning. The attack on Pearl Harbor was later judged in the Tokyo trials to be a war crime. So I just wanted to read that information because today is a significant day, just not to forget. I think a lot of times we get overcome with what's going on in today's political world and conflicts across this globe. But this particular event, we should never forget, and it's real. And I'm looking at you, Joe. I know you served in the 50s, but I'm sure you remember this. Would you like to share some memories that you?
Well, I've got quite a few, Gunny. It would take up too much.
It would take a while,
time.
Yeah.
But there was some bad times, but there was a lot of good times.
That's right. And Joe, you're in your 80s, and you look great, by the way. But there are kids today and young men and women of our age that we weren't around during that time. So it's just a day that we don't forget the men and women who lost their lives, but also served during that time. But it also shows how great this country is and how something tragic can bring us all together.
I was real small at the time.
You were just...
Yeah. I sold papers on the city of Detroit, and I remember the headlines, President Roosevelt declared war on Japan, and then the Axis powers declare war on us, which was Italy and Germany. So those were the Axis powers, the Germans and the Italians and the Japanese.
That's right.
Yeah. And I remember a lot of the headlines that I was, when I was selling papers, from the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News. And that brings back memories, yes. I think about it every so often. My mind will wander.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's fitting for you to be here today to share that information with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
on this
that,
day.
Danny.
So. Okay. Correspondence. I just want to bring to the court's attention, the Sanitation District had discussed that they were going to commit $10,000 to the KIA loan. And this is in addition to what the Fiscal Court pays annually. So the board voted either last night or the night before that they are going to cut a check to KIA. So Erica's been working with them as far as how to make that happen. So I just want to bring to the court's attention that a $10,000 check is going to be submitted not to us, but to the KIA for the debt. And then also on their correspondence, the Children's Arts Center, we all know that when you look at the monies that come in and go out, we have to show this debt on our books. And it's with great news that the Children's Arts Center has actually paid off their debt, and we don't have to show that debt on our books. So that's correspondence I want to share with the court that will be, actually it's paid in full. So you got that correspondence from KCO. Under old business, approved the minutes, November 16th meeting and November 19th special call meeting.
So moved, Judge.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New business, the 2022 holiday schedule.
Got one thing under old business I'd like to add. It's in reference to Special Projects employee Dustin Tilson. We had discussed and voted on a raise some time ago. After careful consideration on that, I know the current pay is $16.72. The top pay for the staff 4 is $19.41. I'd like to put that in a motion that his pay would go to $17.82, which is basically splitting the difference on those two, effective immediately.
I've been pretty consistent on this from the beginning, ever since it was recommended by the supervisor, so I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? The only question I would have is, what is the plan moving forward for all the other employees that are going to come forward, obviously wanting the same type of raise? And I don't know the justification for the raise.
Has these recommendations been brought to the court by their supervisor like this one was? It's been my argument from the beginning. We sat in budget talks back in March, and the only thing that the special projects crews supervisor asked for was a raise for this particular employee. And so we've always taken the recommendation of the supervisor when there's a raise, so I think we need to carry on with that policy that we have done. So that's my justification behind it.
And the monies are going to come from where?
Where can we get the monies, Erica?
I believe we should be able to from the carryover fund, an additional $2,500 roughly, which is what that would amount to from now to the end of the fiscal year. Am I correct on that?
Right. So, yes, and what Commissioner Braggs is talking about is the general fund carryover that's in excess of what we budgeted for. And it should be able to handle 25. Of course, we are taking, don't forget, the budget amendment we're going to have a second reading of once it comes back, which we thought would be today, but it wasn't. We're doing 25,000 for other county buildings. So, yes, I mean, there is another 2,500 there if that is the wish of the court.
I do want to add to that 2,500 number would include the retirement and the Social Security obligations that would go along with the
Right,
pay
so
increase.
The 2,500 would, and that also, that calculation, when you guys asked me for that, is if there's no overtime. So if there's no overtime between now and June 30th, that's what it would cost. If there was overtime, it'd be more, but there's no way to guess what that could be at this time, unless you wanted to just guess high, or, that's up to you all.
Can I make a quick suggestion on, as far as like payroll goes, if you make it effective 12/1, it'd be, so it's not in the middle of the pay period? I'll just suggest that.
You mean January 1?
Well, if you make it effective now, it'd be 12/7.
Okay.
So it's kind of in the middle of a pay period. If you make it
Okay.
effective 12/1, it's just retroactive back to 12/1. It makes payroll a little easier, so we don't have to
Okay.
split the time.
I'll amend that motion to make that effective 12/1.
Okay.
Do I need a second to the
Well,
amendment?
hang on. We got a motion and a second, so to change the motion, I think we need to strike the original motion, and if you're going to add that, put it all in one motion. Okay. I don't know, can you make a motion after a first and second? That, I think it's more of a procedural. I don't know if you can.
If you want to strike your original motion and then make a new motion.
Yes, that would be the,
Okay, I'll strike the original motion, make the motion to, for the pay increase of pay increase to the amount of $17.82 to be effective December 1st, 2021.
Second the motion.
coming from carryover.
Yes, to be funded by carryover.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And oppose, I'm going to oppose, and I'm going to explain again. This is, again, nothing against the individual. It's a simple matter of we are opening up a budget can of worms. There are several other employees. The payroll is one of the, if not the biggest expense on our budget. I would rather have it reviewed going into the next budget year instead of mid-season trying to use carryover monies. So there's going to be other employees coming forward wanting the same treatment, and I've yet to hear a plan on how we're going to deal with those employees. So that's why I'm voting no. But motion does carry. We will move on to new business, 2022 holiday schedule.
Move we approve.
There a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, building inspection expanded jurisdiction renewal. This actually, let's hold off on this because I spoke with Casey this morning. I've given him instructions to complete this paperwork and reach out to the board, and we'll have response from the board, and then we will actually deal with this. But I spoke with him this morning. But just to give the court an update, this is a deadline of February 25th for the Department of Housing and Buildings and Construction to have this submitted back to the state. So that's what we're working on right now.
Because that has something from the city too, right? I think he has a
Well,
letter or something like that.
The board is representative with members of the cities. So
counts
that's why-
that, okay.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to go through the board. So he's going to take care of that.
Okay.
So we'll just present that next time I get the documentation. We'll present that back to the court. Item C, road department equipment purchase. I'll just read this. This is November 23rd, 2021. Sold to Marsh County Courthouse. Shipped, wait a minute. This is the equipment purchase form contract. The Marsh County Courthouse would like to purchase a John Deere 6110M and Machette 3 on the contract listed above. The total cost of the equipment is $167,958.68. Total amount will be broken down into two payments of $84,083.35 each, due in May 2022 and July 2022 respectively. After payments are received, there will be a $1 purchasing option for the equipment. We would like Hudson Incorporated in Paducah, Kentucky to be delivering the delivering deliverer. And this is on the state contract. So we don't have to bid this out. And this, do you want to give a quick explanation of what the equipment is?
Well, what happened last summer is we had a tractor go down. So that's why we're having to replace one now. So we're replacing it with this tractor here.
So the request to the court is for me to sign this to go into an agreement with the purchase of this tractor.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that will get the road department ready for the spring maintenance on the roads. New road resolution, this is, we should have had this on their old business. We've had this discussion, but the court wanted this separated out, so that's what we did. I know Anita and Jason and Nicole and Roy have been working on this. There were a few changes.
So I don't remember this one, that part being in the one that we talked about before, but the state-approved asphalt plants, are those the ones that everybody would use anyway, or have you had, what's your?
Maybe not that they would use the state asphalt.
Okay.
But to get the grade of asphalt that we use on our roads, which would become our road, that's what we want.
And that's who Smith would use, and, I mean, but there are paving companies that don't use a state-approved asphalt plant, I guess, right?
The general public, a lot of them don't use state-approved asphalt plants.
Okay.
You know, there's smaller contractors that do paving for driveways and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's where you're looking at your non-state approved.
But the larger, a mile stretch or something, normally they're using the state approved, right? So for the most part, unless it's a driveway or the size of a driveway, really. They're going to be using that anyway. Okay. And then I guess, so question to you on the before is, I guess before is a definite word, but maybe it could be, I don't know. So in section 1 where it says, this is on the new roads, a person making the request shall first file application with the Marshall County Road Superintendent before. So we're saying straight up before. So if they start that project or come to you after they're halfway done or whatever, even if it fits our specs, we are going to throw that into the existing?
No, I would think that we would just have to go back and if they start the road, if they've got blacktop down, then that's when we may have to go in and core drill, or they hire an engineer to say that road meets our specs.
Okay. I guess that's the only thing that I saw that I just want to make sure, because I mean, I get it, don't get me wrong, but what I don't want to see is that they get into that and then think, oh, shoot, you know, but they've done it to specs, and then because if not, then we're talking a 15-year process on the existing, correct?
Yeah, with those signs of failing blacktop.
Right. So.
Yeah. And when we get into the existing, the question, that's language from, I believe, previous language, but the 15-year, you know, my thinking is that 15-year, is that something that can be adjusted? And of course, the court, the way I understand it, the court is, obviously can be.
Yeah, it's up to us.
Yeah.
Too. So that's true. So we could, at least in that particular case, like what you're talking about, they could come to us and go ahead and petition it as long as but it has to get through him first. So, you know, there has to be some ability for you to make that decision and then come to us. Of course, they're probably going to call us if you say no anyway. So come think of it.
Yeah.
I'll say you're right.
Yeah. Never mind, we'll know.
Buck stops with Roy.
Yeah.
But
But you know what I'm saying. I just
yeah.
don't want to, if you get into it or you just did it and then you think
Yeah.
about, you know, I want there to be at least some
There's going to be
ability.
some people that don't know this is in effect. They go ahead and start
Yeah.
building. a road.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder, so that's a good point there. Is there a way to notify at least the large, the ones that we see that would do the majority of that work? At least we could notify them, hey, listen, we have this plan in place, so that maybe they could be our eyes and ears out there too, to say, okay, listen, if you're going to do this and you want this to go to, or you want to petition the county, you better talk to the county first before you think that's,
Or even notifying the paving companies, there's not that
that's what
many
I'm saying,
companies
that's
that
what I
would be
mean,
doing
Yeah.
the
the
paving
job.
companies.
There are some companies out there that we can, you know, send correspondence to.
Yeah, at least if we sent
Yeah.
correspondence to the guys that we see that are normally doing business in Marshall County, that,
I know this is cliche, but the statute, obviously, a lot of our correspondence, we're statutorily committed to put it in the public paper, but that doesn't
Right.
always capture
Yeah, that doesn't
the
always.
audience. I would think the reason why they do that, obviously, we know back in the day, that was really the only technology or information before the technology came along, but we definitely don't want to get into a position where we burden his office or, you know, trying to.
Yeah.
But there are organizations out there that we can send correspondence to, and that's about as due diligence as we
Yeah.
can to get
I
information.
think at
out.
least then we've done something. You're only talking about a few
Yeah.
of those, I would think.
And I think if they, like you said, that they start a road and then they come to us, and then that's where probably somebody's gonna have to hire an engineer to core drill.
Yeah.
To see how thick the gravel base is.
Yeah.
Now, this does give Roy in his position the opportunity, if he were to go out and do a core sample to seek restitution. So
Yeah.
there is, I mean, obviously, again, his schedule is based off of his schedule, but that is another option outside the private sector, getting an engineering firm to do that. One note on the petition, I just want to update the court. For this that we're looking at today, and I just read my email. I know I sent this out late yesterday afternoon, but there is one typo. If you look at the petition page, it's going to be the last paragraph. It cites resolution passed on July 11th, 2016.
Yeah.
That basically we're striking out, and it'll be, if this is passed today, it'll be today's date for this resolution.
The copy that you have in front of you, does it have that suggestion by Anita to take out the V, that one V?
I think we took it out. Yeah, we took out item V, which was in the previous discussed or presented ordinance, or not ordinance, resolution. It was basically 50% of the parcels occupied. We just took that out.
On the existing, yeah. I
Yeah,
noticed
the
that,
first resolution that we brought.
Yeah.
We just took item V out. And then the mailbox discussion, it is dangerous. And Roy can explain a little bit more about this when you have say a brick framed mailbox, which there are some nice mailboxes out there, but from a safety standpoint and liability standpoint.
Anything on the county right away, we want to be able to break away. If you read a lot of stuff about mailboxes, it's no bigger than a 4x4 post or a 2-inch pipe is what they should be constructed out of. Just in the last couple of days, I've read a lot of stuff about accidents and happened with a concrete mailbox or stone. And then we have to look at, when we're maintaining the road, accidents happen. And when we hit a mailbox, we usually replace the mailbox. Well, we have hit brick or stone mailboxes, and them can get very expensive.
And you're talking about the road department, plowing the road, maintaining the roads. So from a legal standpoint, you know, it's suggested to highly discourage it, but I don't know if we can put in the ordinance or this resolution that they can't put those types of structures up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can, because there's Bowling Green, I know, has an ordinance on that. There are jurisdictions, I looked at jurisdictions all over the country, and it varies. I mean, there is no state statute or reg that I was able to find, but I did see on the U.S. Postal Service website that the Federal Highway, FHWA,
Is it American Association of State Highways?
I was looking at the Federal Highway Work, FHWA, whatever that stands for, was saying what Roy said earlier, the 4-inch wooden or the 2-inch metal. That way it's breakaway.
If we put that in there, are the existing ones grandfathered in at that point, or?
Well, this one's only on the new roads. So I don't think that provision is in the existing roads, is it?
But think about
Is it?
this,
It
though.
is. Okay.
You could have a new road, though, am I right, that someone could still already be living on, that was gravel, not asphalt.
Yeah.
Because your existing roads does not, it mentions asphalt.
Would it be
So
would it be something to, you know, at your level, to discourage the construction of that type of a mailbox? I mean, I understand people, you know, take pride in their property and they want to put out a mailbox of that construction, but yeah, I don't know going forward, or the court can put that, you know, it's not constructed. Existing, you know, that was my question, was grandfathering in existing.
But you could have grandfathered in new too, because I mean, someone could live there down that road already. I think you're getting into,
On a new road, when we accept a new road, and then somebody comes in later and builds a house, they can have a mailbox put up before any of my guys notice there was.
yeah, I'm not sure how you,
Honestly, I don't see, I would say we discourage, and then if it becomes an issue, I mean,
yeah.
those types of mailboxes aren't compromising our budget. I don't think they're, yes.
Is there anything,
And then
is there anything we can do in there from a liability standpoint? Any language we can put in there in case that were to happen?
Well, I mean, you could put in there that we're not going to be liable for hitting a brick mailbox, whether or not that stands up in court. That depends on of each case. I mean, if we have a driver who's not paying attention and just plows it over, if that were the instance, then we probably might be on the hook for something. But if the driver did everything he could to avoid it, and it just hit a bump or something like that of no fault of his, then that would be a different situation. So I don't think you can cover every possible situation with any language. And I also noted yesterday when I was looking at this that Bowling Green has that ordinance in place, but I think everybody's frustrated with the enforcement aspect of it, or lack thereof.
I can't imagine.
the lack of, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I got that language about this mailbox was Warren County when you sent me,
All the other counties.
That's where I got that from Warren County.
Yeah. And the Postal Service has, they have recommended placement of the mailboxes. So that their drivers, if it's one where they drive up to, that we all know that those are recommended, but.
So what do you do? Do you make a must a should? You have to go
Instead
to
of
this,
shall.
L under 5, 6. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it says must.
Shall, should.
Then I could say, well, my brick is easily bricked.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you hit it.
I mean, I'm fine with how that's written, and then we'll just deal with it on a case by case. I can see where high levels of snow,
Actually, the time that we hit one, we was shouldering the road with the machine that we have. It's so long and it articulates the front and the back, so you have to steer it back, and that's how we hit
mailboxes.
the brick, because we're within inches when we're shouldering the road and accidents happen, and that wound up costing us a couple $1,000.
How often does that occur?
Well, I think that was in 19 when we hit that one. Not often.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to see us get in. I just don't. I mean, you put a nice neighborhood like Murray Riley did out there, and you're building a $400,000 home. You ought to be able to put up a nice mailbox to,
I agree with Monty. I don't think we need to be in the business of
Plus, it's
regulating.
I mean,
mailbox.
again-
different. I mean, it's different from place to place too. I mean, having a mailbox on 62 or 68 on a flat stretch
right.
is different than being in a neighborhood by the park,
Yeah.
whatever, Parkview Estates. I mean, people aren't flying down Parkview Estates, or in most subdivisions. They're not, they're not going over 30, 40 miles an hour tops. So,
Hopefully not.
yeah, hopefully.
They'll be coming to us for that petition to lower the speed limit.
Well,
Yeah, you could make must should. So
I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Let's make it should. Encourage it.
We will encourage,
is that a motion?
well, and there's a T in, there's an extra T in constructing in their one thing that would just drive me nuts if you leave it in there.
Where?
Go to the first page. It's in the first paragraph, yeah. It's not a word, is it? You do? You like constructing? I think there's an extra T, is my point.
That had to have been Nicole's mistake.
Wasn't you, would it? It wouldn't be coming from your office. So do we need to make a,
I'm making notes of the changes, and so when we do if we approve, we just add that
okay.
change.
And,
So there's
and I mean,
three
I
right now.
I think the key to this, especially this, well, both of them really, but definitely the new, is that it's not, to me, extra onerous onto the person who lives in that neighborhood, because we've had this issue in Sharp, and if something like this would have been in place then, those folks who bought houses back there right now would not have the issue that they have.
That's right.
And so, to me, this is not government demanding that, whatever it is, more government or anything, as much as it is protecting those homeowners within that neighborhood.
Yeah.
To me, because we all have issues with roads that were constructed bad.
Yes.
That now they come to us, and
There's
what do
no
you do?
easy way to navigate. And what this does is it puts a document on the table that, like you said, that does protect. It's the individual's right to understand if they're moving into a neighborhood, who owns the road. But let's be honest, most people aren't thinking about that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But we are in a position to say, hey, let's make this a regulation to where that homeowner, before they purchase, they know, or before they purchase a house that's on a
Lot.
gravel road, before
Yeah,
it becomes a
whatever.
road, that this is or is not a county road. And it's just another layer to protect all who's concerned. I know this is something that's been discussed when Jeff was here, and I mean, there is just no easy way to navigate this. But I think this is a really good document to help us with some of our subdivisions and properties that are trying to get into the county maintenance program. And we have to be fair to the taxpayers the best way that we can. So.
One thing I would like to point out to those listening, if you see a blue road sign, that is a private road. Our county signs are green.
Okay, so for the 2021 resolution of the Marshall County Fiscal Court amending all prior resolutions and establishing procedure for acceptance for new roads into the county road system, what we have in front of us, there are three changes. First, third paragraph, construction, we'll take out the T. No, that's good.
Yep.
Item L, all mailbox receptacles in the county right-of-way. It reads must, strike that, and it will read should, easily break away as required by law if hit by a motor vehicle. And then on the petition, it reads, last paragraph, before filing a petition, the undersigned should review the resolution passed on. In this, it's got July 11, 2016, but if passed today, it'll have today's date, December 7th, 2021. So those are the three changes. So if
I move we approve the new road resolution with those three changes.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. Nicole has got I think we can save it and open it up in Word. Item E, existing road resolution.
So, so what we did with this is took out that provision, you know, where, what, you had to have a house, first or second house, or was that just something that we told people? Was that actually in the resolution?
We had that in our old resolution.
It was a 15-year after the second house was built or something like that, wasn't it? Or after the first house? Okay. Well, whatever. Anyway, that's not in here. It's just the 15-year. But I guess my question is the asphalt. Because that wasn't, is that added or did it say that in there before? Like you take my example from Opal, it wasn't.
The 2.5 inches of blacktop.
No, I'm just saying it wasn't asphalt. It was, you know, gravel before. So are you saying asphalt? You know what I'm saying? I mean, does that make sense?
If it's asphalt, the way this reads, it's gonna be an existing road. If it's gravel, it's a new road.
Okay. Okay.
So if somebody's wanting, if it's a gravel road,
Okay.
and somebody's wanting to be brought into the county, they have to go underneath the.
That goes to new road.
But your road was gravel, that road was
Yes.
gravel.
So it would have fit under the new road.
Yes, and so it had to be the base 26 foot wide with a blacktop surface.
Okay. All right. How do we determine the age? I mean,
You have to go back and pull everybody's deeds, probably. That's how you have to do that.
but it's not going to show whether it was, when it was blacktop. I mean, you're going to have to,
And that 15 years was in our old resolution that we had, and I just moved it over into this one now.
so how do we, you know what I mean? I mean, we just gonna,
I know that's how we did
That's
it on
your-
the old resolutions that we had. We looked at the deeds and seen the houses there, see if they'd been there for 15 years.
right, but you had, yeah, but it was within there about a house. In this particular case, that's out, so we're only talking about land. Right? Because it doesn't really say, I mean, if it's gravel, no, again, if it's gravel, never mind. This is asphalt only. So that, I mean, I can't imagine there aren't homes back there, and then you're just having to go to deeds. Of course, again, deeds don't show anything about it when a house, but, and definitely doesn't show when the asphalt was put down. You just do the best you can to figure it out.
There's gotta be some way on the existing that blacktop has been there for so many years.
The petitioner probably is going to have to be the one to tell us. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, somebody surely has lived in that neighborhood for that amount of time. You know what I mean?
We talking about the 15 years? That's, I've got a question on that. How do
Okay.
we, I mean, the 15 years, where'd the 15 years come from?
Yeah.
Why did, and I don't know if we know why.
I got the 15 years from the old resolution. And I just moved it into this one.
Gotcha.
The old one was done old, I mean, so I don't,
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the rationale
Reasoning
was
was.
behind the 15. The only thing I can think of is that 15 years is the period for like an adverse possession or for a prescriptive easement. So that may be why the 15 years was done. If I had to guess, that would be my guess.
So it doesn't have anything to do with asphalt and what happens potentially to asphalt in an amount of time. It really is just more of we just stuck a 15
a number in there.
Yeah.
Well, let's say that it is. I mean, I agree that may be the reason why that was put in, because 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the condition, because I was sitting there, over 15 years, depending on the type of road.
Yeah.
You could have a really bad road. If the court in its discussion, if we're talking about an existing road coming into the county maintenance program, if it's a 5-year road, the court's making that decision. And at that point, if the court were to say, yes, we're going to take this road in, it meets the 5-year, our recommended 5-year of being a traveled upon road, at that point we take it in. The 15-year it's not a factor anymore, because we've just brought it into the maintenance system.
Yeah, the condition's the most important
The
thing.
condition is the
Not-
cost. That's what hits the budget.
Not the age,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
because 15 years of continuous public use makes it a public road. Now, that doesn't make it a county road. It makes it a public road. So that's probably where that came from. But you don't
Okay.
have to have it's, in theory, you could have a road that was built. Let's just say that there was a road that was built and nobody really knew about it. Let's just talk hypothetical here. And they did it exactly the way we want it. And it was a year after they got it built, they wanted to bring it in. Well, is there a reason why it shouldn't if it meets specs and there's 3 or 4 people living down there?
yeah. And they're willing to sign quitclaim deeds to give us that road. There's really no reason why not to do that.
We tried to make the existing a little easier to get roads brought into the county.
Yeah.
So if I pave a road and it don't meet the new road specs, and you lower that down to 2 or 3 years, I'm just gonna sit on it for 2 or 3 years and say, I'll bring this in as an existing road, which the specs are lower. Does that make sense?
So, okay, with that being said, is there a period of time then where that failure would start to show up?
Well, I think it comes back to, because I understand what you're saying. That's exactly what I was looking at, is the cost. But I think it comes back to what is in the language as far as we review, just like your scenario. If that were to happen, the court reviews it. And that's where we have the ability to send somebody out and look at it, come back and fill us in as far as how that's going to affect our budget. If it's a mile road with 1 resident on it, things of that nature. We have that opportunity to review. We're trying, I think the 15, when I read it, it may discourage people that have a good road that want to come to us and say, hey, we want to bring this into the county maintenance system. But they may look at that and say, well, we got to wait 15 years.
Well, let me. Okay, so let's not do the 5 years and then that's just 5 years from whenever they do it. Could we not say a period after this date, so that we know, even if you come tomorrow, that if your road must have been built prior to 2015. You know what I mean? And then that continues on. It may be 15 years in 10 years from now. Does that make sense? Or does that solve your?
There is some language out there, different counties have a date in there like that.
You know what I mean? Like we pick a date that was a certain amount of time ago, and then that way we know that everything that we are taking in is at least that amount.
Of 15 years?
Well, I'm not saying 15 years. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying like at least if you're wanting to get away from the thing of
His
I'm just
example.
going to keep, his example, would you not resolve that by putting a date in there that was at least 5 years ago? Because if it was built after that date, then it would go into the existing.
When I read this.
I gotta think through that.
Yeah.
Am I?
I understand what you're saying, yeah,
When,
but I don't know that I could repeat it.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I think most people's going to read that.
So there's a way that you can get into my head and take what I'm thinking and because Denise would love that.
I think most people are going to read that and think their road has to be in place for 15 years
Yes.
before they can apply.
Yes.
And I think that's the
Yes.
last thing we want.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I don't want it to be 15 years either. I'm just trying to figure out a way to put some time frame in there that would keep from what he's talking about happening.
I think you need some years in there, because it needs to go through some cycles of winter and summer, and construction on that road before we can go out there and look at it and say 15 years. You know, it's fine.
yeah, and that's where I think the court, and it may be just, we take out the 15 years, because I think if that were to happen, that's where we send out the road reviewers, and they go out and they look at the road, and if in your determination, we realize that the road was in existence for 3 years, but it hadn't had enough time to, it's starting to show signs. I know some of the roads we travel on, water does so much damage, and you start to see the asphalt kind of shedding off of its original construction, things of that nature. You have the trained eye to see, to come back and report to us that, hey, we might want to give this road just another year or two to see, or, I'm just trying to come up with something, but.
So you just say open to the public, so supporting traffic and open to the public with no signs of failing asphalt, and just take the 15 years out?
Well, how about this? What if you say, purpose of this resolution, existing road is hereby defined as a road that has had, let's put had after has.
Okay.
Where?
Same.
Oh, I got you. Has had
A
a
base coat of asphalt capable of supporting traffic and open to the public for a sufficient period of time.
with no signs of.
To allow the Marshall County Road Superintendent to determine there are no signs of failing asphalt.
I don't want to get to the point where somebody just comes up and says, hey, I got an existing road. Can you come look at it? The blacktop's 2.5 inches thick. It's been here for 5 years. And like you say, I got to go back and dig to see how long it's been. And it actually hadn't been that long. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that does leave your discretion then, right? To say, I need more time. It needs more time, right?
Yeah.
Was that too open-ended?
Well, here's what we know is going to happen. We pass an existing road requirement. You're going to get phone calls. There are roads out there that are existing roads that are in really bad condition. There are some folks that are in a position, there's enough people that live on that road that have the capability to identify what it is based off of your recommendation that needs to be fixed, that can eventually, they can do that and bring that to us and we can move forward. But then there are other roads where, they just don't have the resources to make that happen. So there's going to be a varying level of things that will get presented to us under the existing road resolution. However, the condition of the roads, some of these roads are in real bad condition. And that's where the language tells us it's based off of our budget and money's available. So there's a whole host of factors that would probably restrict us from moving forward with bringing an existing road into the maintenance, which is a case-by-case situation. But we won't know about those roads out there that do fit what we're looking for, just based off how this reads. And I don't want to discourage folks out there, because they're out there. They've come to my office. I'm sure you guys have gotten phone calls. There are roads out there that we are capable to bring in our maintenance program, but this would be something that they would call us again or come by.
And I'm going to say, honestly, I think we're probably spending a lot of time on something that I feel like, because we have asphalt and not gravel
or dirt,
that we're probably not going to get as many as we think, because we haven't had a ton of development, in the last 15 years, really. You think the ones that we're thinking of have been there longer than 15 years that are probably hitting our mind, or they're gravel, one of the two.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that there's really, because of the asphalt piece of this, I think that,
So if
you know what I mean?
If we take out the 15, and as Jason was saying, and I was writing it down, open to the public for at least a sufficient period of time to allow the Marsh County Road Department, that may solve, as he puts this together, that may solve what our concerns are.
You need on cue to take that must to should again, because it's that same mailbox.
While they're looking at that, while he's typing that up, item V is what was taken out. So item V, the 50% of platted lots must be occupied.
Okay.
That is that 50%.
That's gone.
That's gone.
Okay.
And then in the quick claim deeds,
3, any road taken into section 3 on the first page?
yes, yeah, you get that up there. Okay, that was we'll show you what Anita suggested, and that'll be an addition.
Okay.
She emailed something and then I sent something to her too. Can we pull that up? Hers is pretty much the same as what.
It should be. Email just sent you.
Oh, it was already in there. It was up there.
The red.
Okay. Can we add a comma after title? Oh, okay.
On the red, Jason?
Yeah.
So it said, quitclaim deed shall contain a proper legal description of the road, source of title, comma.
And be supplied by the petitioner at petitioner's expense.
That's your, what is that one called? What English term?
Oxford comma.
The Oxford comma. He
Say that
must
again.
have the,
And be supplied what?
And be supplied by the petitioner at petitioner's expense to the Marsh
for, well, we're going to be here for a while, so what we can do is we can write down the,
Table it until,
then we can table it when we come back in. Right now, I just see 3.
once we get those two, will you send us those back so that, because that's definitely something somebody will ask me for.
Read that money.
For the purposes of this resolution.
Sufficient period of time so that the Marsh County Road Superintendent has the ability to inspect said road and determine that there are no signs, failing asphalt, or the significant problems with said road. So that language will be after. It's just replacing that whole paragraph. We'll send that to Nicole. We'll make these changes and send that to her. And so right now, that change, where it reads for the purpose of this resolution, we'll make that change. And then item 3, after title, comma, and be supplied by the petitioner's expense. And then Q, all mailbox receptacles in the county right-of-way should easily break away. We'll strike out must. And then item V was struck completely.
Completely.
50% parcel plotted lots.
I move we approve with those changes.
Here, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You've got. We'll send this to her, too. We'll go on the board appointments. Write this down. Let's see. We've got the sanitation district has 2. This is a letter from the board. The terms for trustees of the Marsh County Sanitation Board will expire December 31st, 2021. The board is asking that Randy Green be reappointed for another 4-year term. Bob Gold be appointed to serve in the position previously held by Kelly Wilson until January of 2025.
Motion to approve the board appointments.
So Randy will be reappointed for a 4-year term ending January 1, 2026. And Bob, well, let's just do that one first. So there's a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then Bob is to fill an expired term for a 4-year term,
So moved.
January 1 of 2025. There's a motion.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Gilbertsville, I'm still waiting for Gilbertsville to get me some information, so I'll bring that appointment back for the fire department. East Marshall Fire Department, my appointment's for Scott Wagner to fill unexpired term. The appointment term to finish will be June 30th of 2023.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That should take care of all the board appointments. Hopefully I should have more information from Gilbertsville by next court meeting. Sanitation personnel,
This is for Jerry Kemp. He successfully passed his wastewater treatment training certification exam in November. So that would be a $1 increase from $15.72 to $16.72. And much like before, retroactive to 12/1/21 for payroll purposes.
and that's a premium.
Yes.
So that's a premium, just like with the premiums, if he loses his certification or doesn't renew his certification, he loses that premium.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item H, the KOHS grant, 2173. I'm just going to bring this to the court. We were approved a $79,000 grant by KOHS for both EMS repeaters and fire department repeaters. That grant was used to move those monies. The intent by the court was to use those monies into the interoperability statewide plan with Motorola. KOHS is asking if we want to we have to do a change of scope of work for that grant. And so they're wanting to know if that's what we want to continue doing. Here's the issue that's been brought to me. The EMS, they're wanting the repeaters. This will help them. Fire departments, on their hand, they don't want the repeater. So the change of scope of work for the interoperability plan that the court's already agreed to go into with Motorola. The question is, specifically for this grant, I have to report back to KOHS on the 9th of this month as far as if we want to do this scope of work. That's basically $79,000 that's on the table as far as monies that don't have to come out of our budgeted lines. My recommendation, I don't want to see these monies lost. There is some work that has to be done over the next couple of days to get the paperwork submitted to KOHS. I asked them to extend it. Originally, it was last week. I asked them to extend it to today since we were meeting today.
Why are the fire departments not wanting the repeaters?
Well, you've got some that don't want, they want different types of service. It was brought to my attention that I know Gilbertsville, heard from some individuals within the fire department community as far as paying for repeaters. So I really don't know what repeaters that they want, but that's coming out of apparently their general funds. I don't know who all is participating on that.
So, educate me here. Need a lot to educate. These repeaters, paid for by a grant, correct? But they don't want them.
That's what I'm being told.
Okay. So they're going to use taxpayer money to buy different repeaters, even though these here repeaters are paid for. Is that what I'm getting?
Correct.
What sense does that make?
Financially, it doesn't make any sense.
And I know there's two sides to every story.
The problem with this grant is that EMS, you can't take, say, a portion of it for EMS. It's all or nothing. That's what the grant specs were submitted for. So EMS, obviously, Fiscal Court, and a lot of people don't know this, but we contract with the hospital. This is the county's infrastructure. So the hospital, they're not putting any monies into this. So when we do ambulance, each year we do the upfits for the ambulance, we get the striker load system, we get ventilators, those types of things we budget for, and we will get for EMS. That's our agreement with the hospital, is that we will provide that. So when it comes to EMS, their repeater, this is not, again, coming from our coffers. We went to the state, we got monies for these repeaters, and they want the repeaters. EMS does.
EMS wants the repeaters, fire department don't. Right?
That's what I'm told.
Okay. Which fire department?
That's a great question.
I mean, seriously, I am sick to death of this pissing contest. It is ridiculous.
I agree.
I mean,
I sat in a meeting 4-5 years ago and was asked directly if the repeaters for the fire department were to go down, who is responsible? And I said the county. It's our infrastructure. If we do not keep an eye on our infrastructure, which I can tell you over the years, the infrastructure was just dilapidated. So in getting control of our infrastructure so that communication is in place, here we go out and we get grant monies for these repeaters. And it's not monies coming from our, actually, these are monies that leave our community. Because the taxpayers' money is going to federal, state funds that are supposed to come back to our community. And we're going out and getting those dollars. But I don't know. That's why I'm bringing it to the court, because this has just been, it's a mess.
So that you know of these repeaters, or do we know, I guess is the question, require that the fire departments have different have to go out and buy different equipment because of these?
Are they
Repeaters?
compatible? I think is what you're asking, right? Are they compatible?
Yeah, so when a call comes in and we actually communicate to the fire departments or EMS, we're using that communication by way of a repeater. If, let's say, that's why the whole state interoperability plan, let's say you have, and I'm just using an example, let's say you have an agency that doesn't have a system that is not within the standards. Prime example, as we've discussed in court, say a DMR system. The quick committee won't approve that. We've already been through that. So we wouldn't have gotten a grant. These monies would not be approved for that type of a system. Does that make sense? There are some that want to use that type of a system, but our goal here is to get the message out to those agencies. Once those agencies get the message, it's upon them to communicate back. Does that make sense? So the repeater is, very important so that we can communicate to these agencies to get the information out. Now, not to get into the weeds, but while they're out on the scene, however they want to communicate out on the scene amongst themselves, that's up to them. But here, getting that emergency message out to them, that repeater is key. A case in point, we had a CAD vendor. We sat in on the meetings with the CAD vendor. The CAD vendor lays out the options of what the service can do. The problem is that you have certain members in the fire community and maybe even some other agencies that see that, well, this is going to change what we have. It's not going to change. It's what you want or what they want. The options that the vendor brings to the table are just options. And so there's an educational piece. And this, getting back to this grant, this is, if we let this money go, then we're going to have to find the money somewhere else.
Will this eliminate what the fire departments are currently using? Will they still have that capability?
Eliminate what?
Well, you're saying they don't want these repeaters. Is eliminating what they're currently using?
I don't understand your question. Eliminate what they're currently using.
Well, I assume they currently have some kind of repeaters for their current use, and they're not wanting to upgrade to these, is the way I'm understanding this. If these are put in place, is it going to eliminate what they're currently using?
Not knowing what each fire department has as far as communicating by way to the repeater, I can't answer that. I just know that the repeater, we wouldn't be putting up a repeater that they would not be able to communicate to us. Not to get into the weeds of it, but their FCC requires certain communication. You've got a repeater that's licensed, so you can only communicate based off what the FCC requires or how it's licensed to require. So all this, I don't think that, to answer your question, I don't think that the fire departments are not going to be able to communicate by way of this repeater. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I guess my main question is, are they compatible with their current equipment? I mean, I don't want to get in a situation where each and every fire department, each and every vehicle or whatever is going to have to purchase new communication equipment to be able to use this.
Well, it goes back to, let's say the example. If they've got a piece of equipment that can't communicate, I guess this is the best way to explain it, with my knowledge, is if they've got a piece of equipment that can't communicate to that repeater is licensed by the FCC. So what we put up on the tower, if they can't communicate and if it's not, doesn't fall within the interoperability of what we have, then that is a problem. But at whose level? If you're not using something that isn't licensed, that's out of our control. That's FCC. If I'm understanding what you're asking.
Well, I guess there's a big unknown there for me. Is there going to be an expense, a huge expense to them if we do this? That's my main concern.
Well, just let me remind the court, this is a grant that we approved, we got, So I don't think that this is going to change anything that they have when it falls under the interoperability. So that's what I'm saying. Without knowing exactly what you're asking, I mean, this grant's something that we've already approved.
Yeah, and so why is it coming, tell me again why
Well,
it's coming back to us if
it's
we've
the
already.
The $79,000 has been awarded. The fire departments didn't want the repeaters. So instead of and you got EMS that wants the repeaters. So when we bought into the interoperability plan, the change of the scope of work for this grant to use those monies to go into the interoperability plan, that way we don't lose that $79,000. And the interoperability plan is consistent with what we say, yes, that's what we want to do. The state says, if you read their interoperability plan, they want everybody to be able to communicate. So if supporting agencies come in, and these are federal dollars, so you've got the national push to get, and this has been going on for years, but the national push to get all emergency responders to communicate, federal, state, and local. If we're going to use those monies, then we have to change the scope of work. And so that's, unfortunately, there's things that have to be done in that change of scope of work to continue moving us into that interoperability partnership. So I don't, to go back to the original question, why they don't want it, that's something that they're going to have to explain.
And these are repeaters for all the fire departments? Or a certain number of fire departments?
Well, if you think of it as, say, EMS, okay, so EMS, we have one EMS in the county. They communicate based off of that repeater. All the fire departments, when it comes to us calling them out, that's off of the one repeater. And I can tell you that when you get into these, there's a certain level too where it's, that's why there's a technician but I don't think the court would have approved and to submit something. I can tell you right now, we wouldn't have been awarded the monies if it didn't fall within the interoperability plan. The QUIC committee has to review all these grants.
How many fire repeaters do we have right now? Like, so we go from that to one? Is that what we're doing? It'll go Draftonville side or?
No, this is the grant, and I don't want to get into the numbers because I don't have all that in front of me. This is to change the scope of work for this grant. Basically, the $79,000 that's been awarded to us, if we want to keep it, we have to do a change of scope of work.
I guess I'm still not clear on this. We're changing the scope of work from what to what?
Yeah, I don't understand the change.
Okay. The grant that the court's already approved that we've been awarded for were for repeaters for EMS and fire. Fire department said they didn't want it. That's what I was told. So when we came back to the court, we said, we'll take this money instead of losing it because EMS, they want the repeater. The interoperability plan that the court went into with Motorola, who got the state contract, if we want to use this money to move it towards going into the interoperability plan, and we want to keep this $79,000, we have to do a change of scope. So that's why it's being brought to the court. Do you want to keep this money in this grant that we've already been awarded? It's not chasing rabbits down a hole. This is something that's already been awarded. as Commissioner Lamb said, $79,000 that are not coming out of our coffers. We need to do a change of scope of work to move those monies into partnering with the state on their interoperability plan.
The same is it the same one that we were talking about when we applied for the $800,000 grant for our radios? Is that the same statewide system you're talking about?
Yes. This is the interoperability plan.
So when you say we go to one repeater, we're probably going to end up bouncing off of other county repeaters in different counties? I don't think, that's what, I guess where I'm confused is, we've got 3 repeaters right now on our channel, and that's not enough.
Yeah.
Is this one, when you say a repeater, is it just one repeater?
No, it's not, this is about, I don't want to get into the semantics of 1 or 2 or 3.
But whether it's going to work or not. Why
This
spend the money if
is
it's not going to work?
$79,000 that we've been awarded. The court's already approved this. We got awarded this by the state. Do you want the $79,000? Or do you want to give it back to the state?
I think that's a valid question. Is it going to work?
Yeah, I wish they were here to
Yeah, me too.
answer those questions.
Without some more information, I'm not good.
You said the day's the deadline on this?
The 9th. And this is, again, this is why I brought it to the court, because it's already been approved through the court. The court's already approved to move with the interoperability plan.
It's going to take somebody smarter than me to tell whether it's going to work, because I mean,
Me too. I'm not very smart either.
Well, that presentation was given to the court when the court approved it. The person who gave that presentation is not here. So, not to get into the weeds, but there weren't any questions. Nothing was brought up. We were awarded these monies. We transitioned these monies to the interoperability plan. We did have Motorola come and explain things to the court. Where we are today is that if we want to move forward with this grant, we have to do a change of scope of work.
Are we getting approved for the $800,000 grant?
I'm not in that position. I can tell you that this change of scope of work is if we want to continue with the interoperability plan. I know that I sat down with the state. They did not award the grant that we had submitted. We had a meeting with them. Their interpretation of why it wasn't awarded is because the funding wasn't laid out in their terms. The funding was there, but next year's cycle, if we're going to use these monies, this change of scope has to be done.
So this would be going toward what ultimately could be an $800,000 expense to the county?
No. This, if you remember what the court approved, this grant was awarded. We transitioned this monies so that we didn't lose it to the interoperability plan. That cost was $800,000. That's what we submitted in a grant. KOHS is telling us if we want to keep these monies, because this is a different grant cycle, if we want to keep these monies, we have to do a change of scope to go into the interoperability plan that the court voted to go into.
But the cost for the interoperability plan would be what the $800,000 grant would have covered.
If the state awards that grant, I think the court agreed 20% is what we would commit.
But they haven't.
No. And that, which is not uncommon. We didn't get awarded any grant. EMS didn't get awarded their grants. Moving forward into the next grant cycle, if we're going to use these monies that the court put towards.
They will just sit there until.
Well, the monies would still be available to us. We got 2 grants. This is the grant that's on the table today. If we're going to use it moving forward, we have to do
The repeater.
a change of scope. Well, the original grant, if you remember, when this was presented to us, guys, all right, I don't have a problem having these discussions, but it really gets under my skin when this has been presented to us. This is a grant for $80,000 that we were awarded. This monies was then moved so that we would keep it, we wouldn't lose it. And we moved it towards the grant that we put in for KOHS for the Interoperability Plan with Motorola. If we move forward into the next grant cycle, if we want to keep these monies, we have to change the scope of work. And if we do the scope of work change, we have to do what's required by the federal government. That has to take place. All these questions, you know, when the presentations were here, none of those questions were asked. I can't go off of what we had months ago.
I see, I can tell you're frustrated.
I am frustrated because.
But the change in the scope of work, though, is a bit confusing when, I mean, it's just, it feels like a change at the last minute, and I'm just, that's.
No. So let me help you. So this grant, the one that we were awarded, the KOHS gave us the $79,000 for the repeaters for EMS and fire. That was back 2020. Word got to me that fire didn't want the repeaters. So we came back to the court and we said, here's the interoperability plan. Motorola just got the grant, or awarded the contract. And the court moved into the interoperability plan. We then discussed taking this grant, because it's no longer what the scope of work was for locally having repeaters up. It would go into a state collaborated opportunity. And so changing that scope of work, using that $80,000 was what was the discussion. We were going to commit 20%, I believe is what we said we would commit.
Going towards that.
Well, if we want to keep this money, because the court's already said, yes, let's do this. Well, if we're going to keep this money, we have to do a change of scope of work moving towards that interoperability plan. And that's
court
where
committed to
that's where we're
file for the grant,
that's where
not
we're
to commit
partnering.
to that system.
Sheriff, can you hang on a second? That's where we're partnering with the state. When Motorola came and gave the presentation, I think Chris was here and gave the presentation, that grant, we all agreed, yes, that's what we want to do. If we still want to do that, these dollars, we have to do a change of scope of work to use that money for that grant. And this is the 1920 grant cycle. We had to do extensions. We've got multiple grants out. I had to write 3 letters for extensions just on grants at our 911 center. So you got different pots of monies, and KOHS sends out communications saying grant cycles in 18, 19 have to have an extension. And so this is one that didn't need a letter of an extension, but we needed to change the scope of work. And in that change of scope of work, we have to do X, Y, and Z. So what's being brought to you today is, does the court still want to move forward with this?
Could this grant not be used to put additional repeaters up that we are still needing now with our communication issues?
Do what?
Could we not use this grant to add a couple of additional repeaters that are much needed to get us better reception in certain areas?
I don't know who you're communicating to, but this grant is what the court's
Oh,
approved.
that's a question.
Okay.
Could this grant, the $79,000 grant, not be used to add some additional repeaters to our current system?
No. You've got two repeaters, and not two as in two repeaters. You got two agencies, EMS and fire. This grant, the scope of work for this grant that we are approved for, the court, we voted to use those monies over here on the interoperability plan. If we're going to continue to do that, you guys have to tell me if that's what you want to continue to do, because if not, then the change of the scope of work of this is going to go pretty much back to what it was originally requested for. And that's EMS and fire repeaters. But as far as the questions and everything, folks stood in front of us, presented this grant, we approved it, presented the interoperability situation, we approved it. That's why I bring it to the court. Cite what was already cited earlier. These are monies that are not going to come from our coffers.
If you've got till December the 9th, I would have y'all just go to your fire chiefs and see why they don't want to do it. There's got to be a reason other than just not wanting to do it.
What will be required of us if we continue with the interoperability plan, since we did not receive the $800,000 grant?
What do you mean, what will be required of us?
I mean, are we going to be required to furnish the rest of those funds? I mean, we can't say we might get the grant next year. I mean, if this is going to lock us into an agreement with that, that's obviously, it's going to cost obviously $1 million to do that. Is this $79,000 going to indicate we're moving ahead with that?
If I understand what you're asking in terms of dollars with our infrastructure, where the dollars are going to come from?
I think that's his point.
That is
No,
my
I'm
question.
talking about
Yeah, if we're going to spend $1 million, we're
for
gonna spend
whatever.
it.
Where are the dollars coming from?
Well, my question is, are we going to be obligated to provide the additional $820,000 for this interoperability plan? Because all we're going to have right there is $79,000 guaranteed. We're not getting the $800,000 grant.
Okay. You are aware, and I'm not being, you are aware that the court voted to submit a grant.
I'm fully aware of that, and we're not getting the grant. So my question is this going to obligate us for that additional money? It's very
We are
simple.
we are not obligated to anything other than the court took action to submit for a grant. So I'm trying to understand, what do you mean by obligated? Obligated to what?
He's asking if you're obligated to.
Sheriff.
Why can I not talk?
The $800,000, if I'm understanding you correctly, is the price for the Motorola quote, the grant, to go into the interoperability plan that the
Correct.
court approved. That's not an obligation. That's a grant.
That's a grant we're not getting. So
It's a grant that the court approved to submit for.
Yes.
That these monies, in this grant right here, we were going to use this $79,000 because it's a change of scope of work
I understand that.
to go into that interoperability plan. If the court is continuing, that's why I'm bringing it to the court. If we're going to continue to the interoperability plan, we have to do a change of scope of work on
Well, I would
this.
say without the $800,000, we're not going to. For the grant.
It's a grant cycle. There is another grant cycle.
Well, it's not guaranteed, just like the first one wasn't.
And that's why I asked my question to
And it's-
follow up with you.
And it's not an
The-
improved system.
Sheriff, please, if you actually, when you look at that grant, those monies we apply for, in terms of, let's just say where the money is going to come from. Let's just say we put in next cycle and we don't get approved again. What's the plan and where are those monies coming from? That's what I'm asking. You're
Well, that's what I asked. Where will the money come from? I mean, that was my question.
Well, right now, if we do a change of scope for these dollars, that's $80,000 that don't come out of our coffers. What the court already agreed, we do the change of scope, we put it into the next grant cycle for the exact same thing, the interoperability plan. If awarded, that's where the money is going to come from with the court's 20%.
So the money will not be spent until we know whether we are given the grant money for the large
Yeah,
grant.
the court's already determined that, yes, money. So when we first got awarded this, with its
Yes.
original scope of work.
Right.
We switched it. We said, let's use these monies to go into the
that,
the
yes.
interoperability
I-
grant. Just because they denied the grant doesn't mean that it's off the table.
Yeah.
Going into the next grant cycle, if we're going to use these monies like we did, we have to do a change of scope of work.
Okay.
And within that, we have to do what is required by the federal government.
So
But
they are not being
Not
spent.
not getting the grant doesn't obligate us to spend that money.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
No grant. No grant obligates us. That's why I'm trying
Spend
to
that
understand
money.
what you're saying. Just because we submitted a grant, there's no obligation. But these monies, we do not want to see walk away, as Lamb said earlier. I mean, this is, and this is stuff that's been brought to us. And I know some of you know that, but, you know, in the best scenario here, not even knowing the details, as far as why the fire departments don't want it, there's so much misunderstanding. But why they don't want it, the court it made actionable items as far as what we're going to do. I don't want to see these monies go away.
Is there a period of time that it must be spent before you have to?
Well, like the other, we've got grants right now that the court's approved, that the state comes in and says, 17, 18, 19 grant years, because grants will be awarded in communities, it'll take them a year or two to work through it. They said, okay, these grant cycles, I have to, as a judge, submit a letter of extension. So I did that. This one, this year, does not fall under that. But the change of the scope of work, we have to do what's federally required if we're going to go into the next grant cycle to where that's done. And we get to keep these monies. And again,
But
The-
it's not being spent. It's not being.
no, you can apply for
We've
grants.
been presented that, and they told us it's not a better system than what we've got right now. That's what our reservation, after you all approved it, we went to the new 911 center and they presented it to us. And as it stands right now, it's not a better system. You may spend $800 or $1 million and you don't have better communication. That's the problem I see with it moving forward.
And I
The
can
only
tell you
reason to
that
get on this system is the idea is to go regional, and it fits that regional model instead of what's best for us.
Absolutely, it's a regional model. I mean, we've got a regional center of communication, and Motorola stood in front of us. They got awarded the grant by the state, or the contract by the state. You know, this is coming to a point, and this is just my opinion, from where old infrastructure that the fiscal court is responsible for, it's dilapidated. It's been old. We've all inherited it. Moving it forward, it's been a conflict every step of the way to try to move our infrastructure forward. Why is it such a struggle to move us forward, to be out in front, and to make services better for everybody involved? I know why, but when it comes down to what the court has discussed in open and what we've agreed to, it's to make our system better. There's always going to be questions of money. There's always going to be questions of who's in control. At the end of the day, the fiscal court is responsible for the infrastructure of this county. And as a taxpayer, I don't want to see this infrastructure continue down this fiefdom of a system to where we are incapable of making good decisions for this county. It has got to change, and it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating, and I'm tired of it.
I brought you a system over a year ago.
Hold up.
For $325,000, it would take care of our system. I sent that
Listen.
to you in a text message. It was over a year ago, and you all were not brought one word about it, were you?
We're not getting into that,
Yeah,
Sheriff.
325 devoted.
Listen,
As
you've
opposed to
got-
800 to $1 million.
You've got
The 800,000.
Hey, listen.
We're still going to have to
You've
buy
got
new radios for
one
us.
job, and that's to keep order. As the presiding officer, please just sit while we
This is the
discuss
safety of
this.
my guys. And I'll speak up.
Back to what's being brought to the table.
But like you said, Judge, you know, we are responsible for the infrastructure, but I don't want to be forcing infrastructure on the folks that rely on it to be infrastructure that doesn't work for them. Do you see where we're coming from for that? I mean,
Yes, but nothing is being forced. The infrastructure and what the court has agreed to, the interoperability plan, is a good plan. It's the state's plan. And I don't see where anything is being forced on anybody. I can tell you from experience, and that's why, you know, I sit in on these meetings with these vendors, and I listen, and I hear the communication. And to the previous questions, as far as what it's going to cost them at their level, some of those issues were options. And the perception from that meeting was that, oh, we're going to have to change this, 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 and this. Guys, it's options. It's just like if you bring a system to your office and it's got 50 things that it can do. It's what fits your operations that you pick, or maybe what your budget allows you to pick. It doesn't mean that this is what we're going to have to do. Does that make sense? And clearly, I'm telling you, I sat in on these meetings, and I'm assuming that's what the question was about, because there's going to be changes. Since I've been in office, since we've all been in office, there's been changes. But some of that is at their level. It's not at our level. Does that make sense? We're not going to force anybody, into a situation where they can't operate or they can't be efficient. This infrastructure we all inherited. It was bad when we got here. And here's monies, and these monies are available to us to go get these monies to say, hey, this is what we're gonna use these monies that are available to us that everybody's competing for, municipalities, county governments, we're all competing for the same dollars. And there's not enough.
So
So
purely fiscally, I see no reason why not to change the scope of work.
thank you, sir.
And I will not commit, I don't think any of us want to commit to anything that cuts off fire and police service.
Correct.
I do not believe that changing the scope of work and accepting this free money from the federal government does that. And therefore, I make the motion to change the scope of work.
I'll second the
Accept the
motion,
money.
but I will clarify that there is no such thing as free money.
Yes.
That is federal taxes. I know we like to think grants are free money, but still, we want to use tax
Yes.
money.
Well, and
You know,
I
because,
know.
well, I think we all get in this, that grants are free money. And, you know, and I don't think anybody on this court, Commissioner Collins, anybody, we want to use taxpayer money, and I think that's what this whole discussion was about. I don't think there's any trying to get a dig at you or any of that. I think there is a discussion by this court that wants to spend taxpayer money wisely. So I'll second the motion. It doesn't commit us to anything, correct?
Right, this is the change of scope of work,
Okay.
what the court's already
Okay.
approved to
Right.
go with the interoperability plan, and so that we don't lose these monies. That is through a grant cycle, requesting, submitting a grant for the interoperability plan. The motion and second, and just for discussion, I know what you were referring to, Monty, it's monies that are not coming out of our budget. We all know that there's no free monies. The
Yeah.
federal government's good at that, saying that, but
Yeah, wrong terminology, but the
yeah.
right thought.
yes.
You're right, Bubba.
Sorry, Justin.
Briefly,
All those in favor say aye.
briefly, I have something to say, discussion, part of the whole vote process. I don't feel like, I'd like to have some time to talk to all of them, but obviously, we haven't been offered that convenience. I don't feel like this is going to be compatible with the fire department's equipment they currently have. I have no clue what the expense will be added to all of them to be able to use it if it goes through. And from listening to Sheriff McGuire, I think we have other opportunities to provide the service we can here. We know what we've got now, and if we add to that, I think we can get where we need to be. This state thing is an unknown. We have absolutely no idea what kind of service, where it's going to provide. I've already heard bits and pieces of instances where officers are having great communication with it in the vehicles, out of the vehicles, not so much. That's on a state level. So I will not be supporting that.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. And I just want to bring to the court's attention that the state plan has yet to be built. So all the communication issues that you're hearing, phase one is Western Kentucky. And that's important to understand, is that they're building this out. And I talked to Unit 5 out of the KSP, and that was directly from him as far as state police. There have been some folks grumbling about it, but it's not built out yet. And I think that's to understand there's a bigger system here, and to understand it at all aspects, not just one aspect. It has to be understood in the total aspect. But all right, transfers, item I.
Okay. There's one appropriation transfer. It is from insurance administrator's expense to other county buildings maintenance for $2970.77. That is for a bill that we have from HMC. I chose insurance administrator's expense because that should come in a little under what it was budgeted, since we do not pay Peel and Holland anymore to administer the wellness program. And we need some money in there until the second budget amendment comes back from DLG so that we can read it. So that's the only one on that. Oh, there's also a transient tax transfer of $23,672.59.
I move we approve the transfer.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so on the actual bank transfers from bank account to bank account, there's only 4 on there. They're from the occupational tax fund to the road fund, the jail fund, the 911 fund, and the sheriff's fund, which lives in the general fund bank. And those are all transfers of our OTA subsidy. Those are budgeted, that we've had budgeted yearly. So $100,000 to the road, $100,000 to the jail, $50,000 to the 911, and $225,000 to the sheriff fund via the general fund bank.
Move we approve.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there any reason to deny payment of the bills or claims? Hearing none, show the fiscal court clerk to record bills to be paid. We need to go into executive session for litigation and personnel. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go ahead and call Marshall County Fiscal Court back to order. There's no further discussion. We just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.